Hello. I'm going to go ahead and get started and see if I can see this thing. We're going to be doing graphical user interfaces with Java, and Java has had quite a history with GUI applications. There was the AWT libraries, and there was Swing, and you'll find a lot of old code, old Java code, that has graphical user interface capabilities that's written with these libraries, so you'll see them around. But the new thing is JavaFX, and that's what we'll be looking at in our text and in our applications. Still not, really set in stone. You have a lot of options with how you use JavaFX. We have a lot of resource libraries that we'll be importing. Sometimes our import list will be quite huge. But basically, when we're working with JavaFX, the most important thing is going to be our stage. And the screen or the window that's open can be thought of as the primary stage. The stage holds the scene. And when we're working with JavaFX, our scene is made up of many nodes, few nodes, one node. Nodes can contain other nodes. So here I could have this orange node that would be my root node that contains all of the other nodes. It could have some children. It could have another node that has children. So we can have a lot of different setups however we want things. And all of our components are nodes. Those components could be buttons, text boxes, labels, any sort of graphical design element that we're used to seeing. Whenever we build our graphical display, we're going to be thinking about our root node. In this example, we could make our root node like a stack pane or a border pane, and our root node might have other nodes in it, like the previous example. Those could be buttons, maybe a slider bar, a rectangle, circle, anything like that. This root node again could have another node that contains children, so we can kind of just keep working. Now, all of these in white are different types of components we can have in JavaFX. So I've got the stage, and on the stage I'm going to set up my scene, and my scene is going to be built with nodes. So however I want to build things. Here's a StackPane. A StackPane is a type of node that can be a parent. This StackPane has a stack of buttons and a couple text boxes. All right, you see them? So here we have a button stack. Here's an example of a border pane. A border pane is a container that has 5 regions. It has a top and a bottom, and a left and a right and a center. So as I'm adding other nodes to my border pane, I could specify that I want this node to go on the bottom or on the top. So all of these different panes give me different options for building my display. This is an example of a grid pane. A grid pane is split into rows and columns. And when I instantiate a grid pane, I can specify how many rows and columns I want or how many cells. Then I can place buttons or images or whatever directly into a cell. Here's a layout overview of several of the different panes and other containers. So there are lots of them. We have a V-box where we can add components in a vertical manner. Here's a tile pane. It looks sort of like that grid pane, right? Only we have tiles. Here's a grid pane, a little bit different, our border pane. An H-box where we have horizontal splits of our window. A flow pane, sorry, I can't say that, is a pane that allows the other components to flow upon it. So as I add nodes to my flow pane, it's going to push the previous nodes across the flow pane. The StackPane just stacks nodes on top of each other. So if we add, 5 buttons to a StackPane, if we don't specify any other parameters, we could end up with them just stacked up on top of each other. An anchor pane allows me to specify an anchor position for my nodes. So we can do just about anything that we want with our design tools that we have available in JavaFX. Now, one thing that we need to be aware of is an aspect of property binding. Let's look at this picture here for a second. Here we have a pane. On our window pane, we've placed a circle. Whenever we move that pane, we would like our circle to stay in the center of the pane. We can do that by setting property binding. So if we implement property binding in this kind of situation, we would be using an observable value. And an observable value is an entity that kind of wraps itself around a value and watches for changes. So in that situation, our pane would be our source object. We could also refer to it as our bindable object or our observable object. Our circle then would be our target, our binding object, or our binding property, depending on how we're setting things up. So through the use of property binding, we can make that happen kind of automatically, and we'll see that in our code as we go. Now, whenever we're working with any type of entity in our JavaFX GUI toolkit, it's a node. And the abstract node class that is the base, the parent of all of these node type classes, this abstract node has many properties that are available and methods that are available to all of the nodes that inherit from it. So some of those properties are like style and rotate. And what's cool about the style property with JavaFX is you can use some standard CSS code to specify style characteristics. So if you are familiar with that kind of code, you're already ahead. So what do we want to do? Well, designing our GUI, our application interface, our user experience, if you will, is kind of like anything else. We need to have an idea of what we would like to do. So if we're going to scratch this out on a piece of paper or create a document or some sort of GUI application form to show how we want this form to look, we're going to be creating a wireframe. And with a wireframe, I might say that I want, these 3 buttons, and my buttons are going to have different actions. Here's a really fancy user interface mockup or wireframe. We have several different options here, and you can see all of the different text boxes and prompts and buttons that are on our interface. Now, how do we create these interfaces, all of these nodes? Well, we have a couple different ways, and I'm going to show you both of the different coding methodologies that you have. For doing a mock-up like this, there are lots of tools available. You can use Creately, mock-ups, some other cloud-based things. You could use Microsoft Visio. Microsoft Imagine is kind of changed, but we'll be able to find it before the semester's over, I hope, and find Visio if you would like it. There's also some visual scene builders available, and they're pretty nice to use. IntelliJ, Eclipse. Gluon has one that we can use with NetBeans, but it costs a subscription amount per month. So you can check into all of these virtual scene builders, but you might not even want to after we're done looking at things. So there are two ways that we can use JavaFX to build our GUI app. The standard JavaFX application uses Java class libraries, and each of the nodes that we can put on our stage or in our scene are set up as Java classes. They have standard properties and methods available that we can use. They're all customizable via CSS, and you can reference API libraries and lots of different powerful features. Now, the other option is using an fXML file, and XML stands for Extended Markup Language. So this does give you the ability to code like using a markup language syntax. So it's very familiar to you that are familiar with HTML and CSS. This XML-like based markup language is really nice because it's real standard in the industry. Now, again, if you use one of the scene builder tools, the scene builders are usually going to generate this fXML code. And using things this way, we kind of separate our back-end user experience from our front-end Java code. We're using JavaFX. It's kind of like the old Swing libraries. Things are all built together. So let's look at both. Before we look at them, kind of review. Whenever you're designing a graphical user interface, you need to be really thinking about how things are going to be laid out. Good design is important and takes planning. A wireframe or a UI mockup is very helpful in that. JavaFX controls your GUI windows by extending...
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Whoops, my phone is talking to me. JavaFX controls the GUI window by extending the application class, and the primary control object is a stage, and this stage is going to be passed to our application start method. The stage displays a scene. The scene contains parent containers and children nodes. The scene on the stage can be changed, so our scene can constantly be changing, and we can have multiple scenes and multiple stages. Our GUI code, lastly, could be formed using JavaFX API libraries or fXML. So let's look. Now, I've got NetBeans open, and I know some people are using Visual Studio Code, and I've done some research, and using JavaFX with Visual Studio Code is kind of early on. You're welcome to try it. You may experience some growing pains as those things develop. Now, if you're going to use NetBeans or one of the more mature development environments, you might need to check for plugins to be installed to give you the capabilities of JavaFX. So here in NetBeans, I'm going to close this. I went to Tools, Plugins, and then I clicked on Installed Plugins. So the ones that you're going to need JavaFX2. So if you don't have that showing in your installed list, you want to go to the available list and search for it and check it to install it. Okay, so that should give us the ability to be able to use JavaFX. Now I'm going to clear this. So I'm going to create a new project. And my new project is going to be Java with Maven. And I want to create this using JavaFX. So I'm going to use the JavaFX that uses the APIs, the Java class libraries first. And that's going to be simple JavaFX Maven archetype. And it does say glue on. Remember, they charge money. I'm going to click next. Now I want to check my project location. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm having a bunch of trouble using NetBeans if I try to use any sort of network location. So I'm having to use like my external. I'd like to give this project a name that's going to be meaningful to me later. It's going to be like our Hello World JavaFX. So I'm just going to name it Hello World FX. I'll leave the rest of this as is and finish to create the project. Now, if this is your first one, it might take a second for NetBeans to load everything. In our project, under our source packages, I'm going to expand. I have both a default package and my Hello World FX package, which is fine. Packages are fine. We need to start getting used to them. We had to eliminate them for terrible things in Java 1, but now we can use them. NetBeans is placing my startup code in app.java. So I'm going to take a look at that Java file. Okay, so because we said we wanted a JavaFX application, NetBeans has gone ahead and done a little bit of work for us. Let's check into that. First of all, our class has been set up to automatically extend the application class. The application class is the default JavaFX lifecycle management class. The JavaFX lifecycle management starts with a start method. So that's why we see an override for that application start method already placed in our code. Our start method, as mentioned, will receive a primary stage as a parameter. So our stage here is already supplied. We don't have to do anything to create that stage. Now, looking at our imports, notice that they all start with JavaFX. Be super careful, especially if you do the auto import where you let NetBeans or whatever tool you're using place that import for you, because it's really easy to end up with the AWT, the old Swing library imports instead of the JavaFX ones, because there were buttons in that world too. And so if you say, yeah, automatically throw that import in there for me, you might accidentally get the AWT version, and then you'll be getting some weird errors. You won't know what's going on. So all JavaFX. Now, in our start method that receives our stage, we have a little bit of code going on here. We're setting up some variables to hold our Java version and the JavaFX version. We're getting that from our system info class. And then we're setting up a label. And our label is going to have this string. So our label will display a string. We create our scene, and in our scene, we say, hey, our scene should have a stack pane that has a label, named label in it. And this is how big it should be. Then we tell our stage where to find the scene, and we show the stage. So let's see that run. Now, before I can run it, I'm going to try it. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's not at me. We need to change some project properties. So there's a couple of ways we can get to our properties settings for our project. I can right-click on my project and choose properties. And I want to find the actions property. In the actions list, I want to find run project. So when I run a project, I want these things to happen. I want it to clean and JavaFX : run. So we're saying, let's do a clean run of JavaFX. Okay, so that was in our project properties under actions. And in this actions list, we found run project. And when we click on that, then we can change that execute goals. Now let's try to run. Much better. So now we see, I'm going to minimize NetBeans so we can focus on our beautiful graphical user interface window. Here it is. Here's our label. Now I'm going to close this and go back to NetBeans. Did it close NetBeans? Oh, how mean. That's a special new feature, huh? Okay, so here's NetBeans back. Is yours working? Is anyone having trouble? Okay, yes, I'll post the video of our meeting. I wanted to do this in a revised manner because my old videos are the old version of NetBeans and there's just too much that's different. So we'll just ignore old ones and make this new one here today. So I'm working, everything's running. This is a sample JavaFX application. I could use it for everything that I need. Let's change it. Let's say, hello world. And then we'll specify our JavaFX version. Now, one thing when you're working with JavaFX, things are a little bit different. If I right click on my file and choose run, I'm going to get an error. But if I right click on my project and choose run, all of the components will be found and built together. And so it will work properly. So notice some of those little nuances here when we're working with JavaFX. Okay, so in your textbook, you'll see that we'll be starting projects just, like they're a normal Java project because we can add the code in ourselves for the start method. And then in our main, we'll tell it to launch, which will tell it to run that start method. So that'll make all the connections. Okay, good. All right, so that is a standard JavaFX project. It's using the APIs. Let's put in some java.code. I'm going to get rid of this one. And I'm going to do // star Oh, that's not it. What do I want? There it is, /**. Too many programming languages. When I do /** and press enter, NetBeans will insert automatically a Java doc comment. And a Java doc comment is something that can be used to build a class document library later. So that's a really good comment format for us to use. For this one then, we could put in some documentation. NetBeans by me. It's got me down there already as the author. That @ author would be a field that the Java doc will actually understand. All right, I'll leave that as far as documentation goes. So this is using the basic JavaFX API. I'll save all, and I'm just going to close this and roll up this project, but I'll leave it there. So let's create an fxml project. I'm going to choose File, New Project, Java with Maven, and I want this fxml. Again, check your location. And I'll name this one Hello World FM or XML. I get dyslexic with XML acronyms. All right. Now, right away, you should notice that there's some extra things over here. Let's look at our source packages. Instead of just one .java file, we have 3. I'm going to look at app.java. Again, this is our primary code file. It has our main. And again, we can see that it's been set up automatically to extend the application class. In this example, though, we have a static variable to hold our scene. And you can see that there's some differences in what's going on. Instead of using the API classes, we're specifying file names for locations of fxml files. All right, let's run this application, and I think it'll be easier to see what's going on after we do that. And again, it should crash because we need to change those project settings. Make sure you're on your fxml project. Properties, actions, run project. And we want it clean and JavaFX : run. I don't know why those are not set automatically. One of you will create a new template for us. I'm going to try running that again. Now that I've got that set, everything's working great, and I see that my UI, my interface here, has a button, and it says switch to secondary view, and then it says switch to primary view. So I can just click back and forth. So if I want to stop running that, beside using the X on my window, on my form, I can also stop run here, and sometimes these JavaFX applications have a tendency to keep running. Okay, so in this FXML project, we can do the same exact thing no matter which way we're doing it. But when we're using the XML, you can tell that we have whenever we set up our start, we're saying what XML file to use. Actually, what Java controller to use. We have a primary controller that says it sets the root to secondary. And we have a secondary controller that sets the root to primary so that we can switch back and forth. Now, where's this XML code that I keep talking about? Here it is. Under our other sources, the primary XML code. It's mad at us because of the insets here, and it ran, didn't it? We saw it run. That's a great thing, isn't it? But when we're looking at our XML file, it is just like any other markup language. We have a begin tag and an end tag. So here's a VBox definition. Within this VBox, we have some children, we have a label and a button, and then we specify our padding. In our secondary, we have the same thing. We have our VBox, a label and a button, and our padding. Oftentimes when we're working with JavaFX, we will lose this import for the insets and have to re-enter it. But that's not the case this time. So I don't know why we're getting our errors on it. And you can see it is running. So because that's in the FXML file, those errors could be a little bit misleading because, you know, that's not really Java syntax. So NetBeans is trying to be an XML interpreter, but obviously, as you can see, it can make a few mistakes. So that is an option for you. The FXML option, people that are really, you know, advanced web developers really enjoy using this option because it lets them create CSS designs the way they want and do all sorts of wonderful, great things. So that option is available to you. For us, for our textbook, for what we'll be doing, we'll be working with the API libraries. Let me get logged back in here. So, for example, in chapter 14, one of the beginning listings shows you how to create this button in this pane. And so it's really, really helpful. Quick answer, get all the code and see how it works because you're going to try all of these different applications as you go. Now, the assignment for this week wants you to do kind of a display window that has a lot of different features so that you can experiment with things. One that I'd like to do together, let's get before we end here. And when there's a great video on the property binding with the circle. And then in this circle demonstration, they do use the set style command where you can see some CSS-like code being passed in to set that style. What I'm looking for is Sorry, I should have found it already. There's one that has an image where we look at a flag, and it might not even be this chapter, but I wanted to make sure and take a look at it together because it can be. There it is. Okay, using image and image view, and they do have a video, so you don't really need me, I know, but let's try this one together because it can be a little bit weird. So when I'm looking at Ravel and I start getting into these activities where I have images, I want to use the image library that Ravel has supplied, but they've hidden it pretty well. So let's see, I'm at listing 14.9. Let's see if I can get back to this place. I'm going to go to the table of contents. And I want to say it's the beginning of our chapter. It's always hard to find somewhere they have a link. And of course they like to move it. So now let's try the chapter 14 exercises, the projects. Voila, there it is. So right here are the image files used in this chapter and the next couple of chapters. So let's go ahead and download this. And then make sure that you unzip it, because if you do not extract all of these image files, you're going to drag them into your project and they're going to look like they should work, but they're not going to work. Try to avoid all of these things that can be unnecessary time killers for us. Okay, so if you look in the folder, you should have all of these flag images, some card images, if you wanted card images, which you will, and some rotating text and all sorts of just great pictures. Yay. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to that listing. And in 14.9, if I click on answer, I've got all of the code. I could copy and paste. I know you guys can copy and paste, but here's where, guess what? It doesn't even matter because you still can't get the project to work if you don't do things in the right way. So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to minimize this and close all of these tabs. And I'm going to create a new project. This project, really, I can just say that it's a standard Java application. And I'll say that it is listing 14 underscore, what am I looking at here? 9. And that should be good enough. Now, because I said it was just a standard Java project. It didn't create any class for me at all. So I'm going to create a new Java class, 1514_9. Now, I'm going to be looking at the Pearson application, as you can, but I want to have a little bit of practice in typing all of these imports. And of course, like I said, you can do the quick action and have NetBeans or whatever tool you're using generate these imports for you. We have so many when we're using JavaFX. It's kind of nice to get used to them ourselves. So we have application.application. What's it mad at me for? Now, I told you that I could do this, but I'll probably be proven wrong. I'm going to add that dependency then. Let's see if it'll work. I want scene.scene scene.layout.hbox. Scene.layout.pane. We're going to go ahead and do that JavaFX.geometry.insets. But like I said, we have a lot of trouble with that one. And NetBeans, we'll see how that works for us. JavaFX.stage. Scene.image.image. Get stuff in my way. And we're going to do scene.image.image view. All right. In our class, we want to do an override. I'm going to press tab here. And we're going to be overriding the start method. And our start method, again, will be past a stage. Oh, what is it not override? Well, I have to be sure to tell it that this extends the application class so that my override will be accepted. Okay. First, we're going to create a pane to hold the image. Now, I'm jumping ahead here a little bit. I know you haven't done the earlier practice activities, and we're going to kind of build up to this one. So there might be some pieces that you have questions about that you'll want to back up and take a look at. We're going to name our pane. Isn't that a really insightful name? And it's going to be a new horizontal box. Size of 10 units. Now we're going to set some padding, just like some border around our items that we insert into our pane. And that's going to be a border of 5 units. And that's pretty standard. All right, now I'm going to create an image object. And I'm going to call it image. Again, it's really inventive names, but they get the point across. Now, this is going to be a new image. And in my example, it says image, oops, lowercase, /us.gif or GIF, whichever you prefer. Sorry if I'm not accurate. So I want to find an image and get that all set up and everything in my application, but I'm going to let it cancel first so that we can see what kind of errors we run into without even having this image in our project at all. Now, once I've created this image object, I can add it to my pane. Now, when we're working with a pane, our syntax can be a little bit interesting. We're going to use the getChildren method, and within getChildren, we have an add function. And our add function allows us to basically add new children. The child that we're going to add is an image view. Now we have an image that we want to place in that image view, and it's named image. You can try experimenting with this. People have been able to get this to work without the image view object. According to all the documentation, an image requires an image view object to be viewed. But again, you can try experimenting with things. Now, in our application, we're going to do a little bit of experimenting. We're going to create another image view. So that you can see some different syntax. This image view is also going to show the same image, but we're going to update some of its properties a little bit differently. For image view 2, we're going to set the fit height to 100, and you'll see how this impacts things. And then we're going to set the fit width to 100. So we should have a square there. We're going to add that to our pane. So now, remember our pane, as we push these new things in there, they're just kind of sliding around in that pane based on the padding that we gave it so that they don't like bump into each other. But it's kind of like they're squishing each other out of the way. Now I want to create one more image view. This is going to be image view 3. Again, it's going to be based on our image. For image view 3, we're going to rotate it. And we want to rotate it 90 degrees. And then let's go ahead and add it to our pane. Okay, so we've been building this pane. We've just kind of like had this gooey toy where we just squish things in there and they're moving around, getting out of the way for each other, making room for each other. So now our pane is all built. Let's go ahead and create our scene. Our scene will be called scene. And we're going to base our scene on that pane. So basically that's going to be the only thing that our scene shows. Remember, we got past the primary stage. We're going to set its title. So as we work with JavaFX, you'll see over and over how you can work with things, passing items in as properties when you create an object, or using the properties to set the variables as you're working with the object. Our scene was named scene. And finally, we're ready to show that stage. Now I can't do anything without a main. And you might be able to. There's certain IDEs that will run these applications the way they should without having a main, but it just seems easier to just go ahead and put it in. So in my main, I'm just going to say launch. And then we can even specify that we want to run our arms. Okay, so lots of things for us to look at now. We've got our whole application ready. The first thing I'm going to do is check my project properties and set up those flags. I want to clean and JavaFX : run. Oops. Okay, now what I'm hoping for here is that this will run, but I won't see any images. That's my hope. Oh, there so is a main class. Why do you not see it? That's not helping me. Okay, so let's see. Not letting me pick my main class. Someone say, do I need to save? All right, I'll save. Thanks. Ah, no, thank you. Well, it's just all mad at me. So I tell you what I'm going to do, because I don't want to mess you guys up. I'm going to copy all this code. Let's see. What do I want? I think I want, you know what, I think I just will create a new project right beside this one so we can copy and paste, because I just don't want to fight with NetBeans here about it being a JavaFX project. So I will, and I'm sure it's easy, but I don't want to waste your time. So I'm going to choose simple JavaFX Maven archetype. And I'm going to say this is listing 14_9 image revised. And I'm going to first get all our imports. I'm going to copy those and go to our new project. And paste. Then I'm going to go to our old project and get our start method. All that beautiful code. And it's probably, like I said, a small problem. And I'm going to paste it over all of this code. Now I didn't get any curly braces or anything, just the code for the start method. Our textbook likes to call the stage primary stage, so I'll make that change. Now I'm going to set our project properties. Save all. And barring any weird error messages, it is mad at me. So let's see, I'm going to back up to where the failure begins. And see if I can tell what went wrong. And here it is. It says invalid URL or resource not found. It's that image. So I said, oh, I'm going to get this to run. It's just not going to display an image. Well, it's a little more dramatic than that, isn't it? It's just not going to run. So I need to find my image and get my image set up. So when I'm looking for a file within a project that is a Java project, the searching is basically going to begin at the project source package folder. It's kind of a weird explanation here. But right now, if I were to just type us.gif, then Java would search my package that my code is in, so this long package name, for this file, us.gif. If it couldn't find it in the package, like now, then it will fail. In our code here, we specify that it should actually be in a separate folder or a separate package called image. So let's create that. In our source packages, do new, and you can say folder or Java package. I'm going to say package, and we want it to be image. Now in my image folder, I want that US flag. In our file name, we specified the GIF or GIF. So I'm going to drag that into my image folder. Now I should be able to see this image in NetBeans. I can look at it. Okay, everything's good. It matches. It's image us.gif. Okay, let's see if we can find it. it looks like the same problem. So I'm going to copy it. And I guess let's try something different, because we could just be running into a difference in the way NetBeans wants to handle it. What if we create an image folder in our package where our code is? Let's try that. I'm going to create a new folder called image. Now, do you see it? It's basically the same folder. It's just that it has this full package name before it. So maybe that'll be what we've got to do with this package going on. All right, let's try it. Still crashing. Well, I told you we would stop at 5. So I'll go ahead and stop here, but I'll figure out what the problem is and let you know. It's something small, but it's one of those things that can be super annoying to try to figure out. It's because we're using packages, and I'm always a non-package person, so that's when I get myself in trouble. Okay, before we stop though, and like I said, I'll send this to you, the revision. Is anybody have any questions about the geometric object stuff that's due? I think you guys have it all turned in, so we should be all good. All good. Okay, well, I'm going to keep fighting with this. I'll let you know what it is, and I'll post this video. So, yeah, it's due tonight. So let me know if you run into any trouble. I'll stay awake for a while. But otherwise, I'll be going to bed. Okay, well, I love to always have new development tools. Always thinks it's super fun to figure out the problem. So we probably just almost have it. Do you want to try a couple of other things? Let's try it before we give up. I'm going to copy this and paste it directly in to our package. That's not going to help. No. Let's see, we created our image folder that way. How about the default package? New folder, image. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'll fight with it. See ya. Have a great night. Bye.